All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a law that, believe it or not, you probably interact with every single day. It's the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. Think of it as the ultimate rulebook, standing between you and potentially harmful medicines or cosmetics. I mean, think about it. Every time you pop a pill for a headache or slap on some moisturizer, you're putting a huge amount of trust in that little product, right? You're trusting it's going to work, and more importantly, you're trusting it's not going to hurt you. So, where does that trust actually come from? Well, it's not just a leap of faith. It's all built on a system. And for, get this, over 80 years now, the backbone of that whole system has been this one single powerful law. It's kind of like this silent guardian, working behind the scenes, making sure everything is safe and sound, from the biggest pharma company all the way down to your local corner pharmacy. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the rulebook itself. Then, we'll get into the dangers it's designed to stop. After that, we'll trace the life cycle of control, meet the folks who enforce these rules, and finally, see what happens when things go wrong. All right, let's kick things off with part 1, a rulebook for your health. So what is this Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940, really? Well, at its core, it's basically a promise of safety. And this single sentence, taken right from the top of the law, says it all. It's an act to regulate the import, manufacture, distribution, and sale of drugs and cosmetics. That's it. Super clear, super comprehensive. It covers every single step. Import, manufacturing, selling, the whole shebang. If a product is on the shelf, this act was involved in its journey there. Okay, moving on. To have a good rulebook, you need to be super clear about what counts as breaking the rules, right? So the Act creates these 3 really important categories for dangerous products. Getting these terms down is the key to unlocking how the whole system works. First up, we've got misbranded. And this is all about deception. It's when a product is basically lying to you. Maybe it's been dyed a certain color to hide that it's gone bad, or the label is missing some critical info, or maybe it's making some wild claim that's just not true. The product itself might not be contaminated, but the way it's presented is totally misleading. Next up is adulterated. Now, this is all about physical contamination. And the law is, well, it's pretty blunt here. We're talking about products that contain any filthy, putrid stuff, or were made in totally unsanitary conditions. This is all about making sure the actual physical substance you're using is pure and safe. And the third one is spurious. This is the easy one to remember. Think counterfeit. A total fake. It could be an imitation of a big brand, or maybe it claims to be made by a company that doesn't even exist. This is just straight up fraud, trying to trick you into buying something that isn't what it says it is. Okay. So now we know the crimes, right? Misbranded, adulterated, and spurious. So let's dive into Section 3 and see how the law actually stops them from getting to you. The Act has this amazing, comprehensive system that keeps an eye on products from start to finish. And this right here, this shows you the genius of the Act's design. Just look at that parallel structure. You've got Chapter 3 covering imports, and Chapter 4 covering manufacturing and sales right here in the country. And what do they both prohibit? The exact same things: misbranded, adulterated, and spurious products. It's like a two-front defense system. It doesn't matter if it's made abroad or at home. It has to pass the same tests. There are just no loopholes. Of course, a rulebook is only as good as the people who enforce it. So for our next section, let's meet the guardians of public safety. These are the people who make this whole system actually work. And it all works like a chain of command, really. It starts with the advisory boards. These are the science whizzes, the experts who advise the government and help set the technical standards. Then you've got the inspectors. They're the boots on the ground, visiting factories and pharmacies, taking samples and seizing anything that looks shady. Those samples then go to the government analysts. They're like the forensic scientists, testing everything in the lab. And finally, all that evidence from the inspectors and analysts, it goes to the courts, who prosecute the offenders. See? It's a perfect flow: advice, inspection, evidence, and then justice. Which brings us to our final section. What happens when the rules get broken? What happens when someone gets caught? Well, this is where the Act really shows its teeth. And the penalties are serious. They're tied directly to how much harm was caused. So, for example, manufacturing without a license, that could get you up to 5 years in prison. Selling a fake cosmetic, up to 3 years. But just look at that top one. Selling a spurious drug that causes serious harm or even death, we're talking a minimum of 10 years in prison, which can go all the way up to a life sentence. plus a hefty fine. That's right. The most severe penalty under this law is imprisonment for life. It sends a crystal clear message. If you endanger public health for profit, you will face the most serious consequences imaginable. So let's just quickly recap the main points. The Drugs and Cosmetics Act is basically India's master safety rulebook for these products. It clearly defines the violations: misbranded, adulterated, and spurious. It's got that clever two-pronged system for imports and local manufacturing. It's enforced by a whole chain of experts, from advisors to courts, and it backs everything up with incredibly tough penalties, including life imprisonment, all to protect our health. And that really leaves us with one final thought. Look, this law has been an incredible protector for over 80 years. But the world is changing, right? We have all these new wellness products, advanced biologics, cosmetics using nanotechnology, things the writers of this law could have never imagined. So the big question for all of us is, how does this vital 80-year-old rulebook evolve to keep us safe tomorrow? Definitely something to think about.